All right, fellow clankers, it's a very, very good day, so celebrate with your fucking coffee and leave your spoon in your cup. Make sure to clank. It's just, tradition and shit. It's for good luck. It's sort of like rubbing Buddha's belly. I'm sure he was actually that obese in life. We gotta talk about impeachment again. This is the funniest thing ever. I wake up today to the news that there's at least one Democrat representative in the House that's jumped ship on impeachment already. I think you only need about a dozen more to follow before Pelosi won't even have the votes to impeach in the House. They control the House by a wide margin. Supposedly it was a blue wave. The House got swept away by the Democrats. Pelosi is Queen Bee now. She might not even be able to impeach him. Look, everything has fallen apart for the neoliberals. The initial goal, I guarantee at this point, based on their behavior, my initial prediction was correct. Pelosi wanted to drag out an unofficial impeachment inquiry, saying, well, we want to get testimony from people behind closed doors. Schiff will run the show. We don't need any Republicans involved because it's not technically official at all, so there's no rules governing what we can and cannot do. We're just going to talk to a bunch of people who think Trump is slimy and leak things to the press. The entire idea was to keep that going through the election, and the Republicans said, okay, make it official. Actually have hearings. Actually gain testimony. Officiate this process, otherwise you're full of shit. And Trump antagonized her over and over, and you watch what Trump did in the weeks leading up to the hearings. He antagonized a special group of people, the AOC crowd, because he knew that if he flipped out and went apeshit and pretended to be all upset, they would force Pelosi to impeach, or at least begin impeachment hearings. This isn't even an official inquiry. This is the hearings. This is just gaining testimony in a semi-official capacity. It looks like the Democrats now, they're stuck doing one of two things. They can keep it unofficial. They can keep it at the level it's at and never show any real grit to impeach him. In which case they look weak, the far left schisms, people within their party begin balking, the 40% or so of the electorate that comprises most of the Democrats and some independents that wants Trump impeached for various reasons will be pissed, and Pelosi will lose control of her party. Or they do what it looks like they're going to do, which is they give it over to the Senate. The Senate says, what do you expect us to do with this? Mitch McConnell then has a choice. He can immediately proceed with a very quick testimony, take an up and down vote, and in a partisan manner, the Senate will not vote to remove Trump from office, to convict Trump. It'll never happen. He will not be convicted, let alone the vote will never happen to remove him from office. I believe what they have to do is convict him, and then it goes back between the two, the House and the Senate again, I believe, if I remember correctly. I could be totally wrong, but they don't have the votes in the Senate. They'd need a good minority of Republicans to join all of the Democrats in the Senate, and Joe Manchin and some of the others may not vote for it. If they held a vote, you might see 2 or 3 Democrats say, no, I'm not going to vote to remove him from office at all, says Joe Manchin from West Virginia, who's semi-friendly with Trump. Or that other chick that initially said she might vote for Kavanaugh, and she didn't, but she's kind of I can't even remember her name, that blue dog Democrat from somewhere in the Midwest, if I remember correctly. You might see 2 or 3 Democrats jump ship. Romney would probably cross the aisle too, so it wouldn't be a total wash, I suppose. Yeah, the Democrats should, Joe Manchin should switch parties and change places with Mitt Romney. That way everything remains even and people can be a little bit more honest with themselves about their actual leanings in the present era. Here's the thing. The other thing Mitch McConnell can do, he can speed it through and exonerate Trump and say, look, he did nothing wrong, fuck off. Or he can do the nuclear option, which is he can drag it out for months and months. What does this do? When the Senate is in proceedings related to hearing testimony, talking, debating about impeachment, 3 important candidates aren't on the campaign trail. Bernie Sanders, who I'm sure the Republicans would much rather not go up against as opposed to Biden, because he's got that cult of personality. I don't think he's viable, but he spooks them. Elizabeth Warren, who's basically Biden's stand-in, and what's her name, Klobuchar, who's risen up to almost viability at this point. By taking them out of the campaign, Klobuchar's votes probably end up slowly seeping off to Kamala Harris, which would be hilarious since Warren won't be doing anything. And Biden, by default, and Buttigieg are the only ones that are basically left. It'll be a 2-man race between 2, white dudes who are seen as not far left enough by the fringe within the party. This would cause a massive amount of schismatic chaos within the Dem party. With one representative in the Dems now saying that they wouldn't vote for impeachment if a vote comes up. I expect there'll be more. It's just a matter of, does it hit that magic dirty dozen or so that you need to prevent an impeachment vote from happening in the first place without Pelosi running a grave risk of losing? If the Democrats who control the House by, 20 seats or something, can't even impeach him after promising impeachment up and down to the far left, appeasing them, dragging it on now for months and months in testimony and hearings and hearsay, if they can't even hold a simple partisan symbolic vote to impeach, without even any hope of removing him from office, of convicting him of any crime and having anything lasting or politically durable, they will lose 2020 in such a massive fashion they won't see what's coming. You'll see the political winds begin to shift. Trump will gain approval. If they fail, it'll make them look weak. The far left within the party will rise up and attempt to seize power. They may even be successful. They may try to kick Pelosi aside. You couldn't even impeach him. Look, you run the House of Representatives. You couldn't even get an impeachment vote through. Why do we even pay you? Why are you Speaker of the House? AOC should be Speaker of the House. To do something like that. It'd be funny. And it'd cause chaos. And watch. If they're successful or not, it doesn't matter. The center-left Dems will flee the party. They'll go back to Trump. They'll go back to being default Trump voters, like the Reagan Democrats were, many, many years ago. This is looking a hell of a lot like 1984 all over again. Minus some of the worst dystopian aspects. You have plenty of censorship, at least the president's not the one largely championing it. Impeachment has already failed. They've already failed. Pelosi has already fucked up. She should have told the far left. What she should have done is kept the impeachment inquiries informal and kept up with her initial line, which worked, which was, hey, we need more to go on before we can open an official inquiry. Then she lets it peter out slowly after leaking a bunch to the press. You leak the juicy details, you leave out the dry, boring 99% of it, which is what she didn't want the public to see. Look, the impeachment hearings over the last couple of weeks were boring. Most of what was said was meaningless. It was a bunch of partisan crap. Nobody cares. A majority of independents didn't even pay any attention to it. Something like 40% of independent voters said they didn't even watch clips of it. No attention whatsoever. What proportion of the other 60 barely paid attention? They got a little bit of a snippet of analysis here and there. They read one CNN article or watched a couple of my videos. I bet it's the majority of them. Nobody cares. There's nothing legitimately impeachable in the testimony. So when impeachment doesn't even probably happen at this point, it's looking more and more like they won't even impeach him. How weak does that make them look? The Senate can drag it out. Mitch McConnell can take 3 of the main candidates in the Dem field off the campaign trail as long as he wants now. And the funny thing is, this basically ensures a Biden candidacy. Joe Biden is in his mid-70s and incoherent. He is a weak candidate. In matchups, he's starting to lose ground already against Trump in the matchups. If you look at the Emerson polling, now that may be an outlier. It also says Trump has 33% approval among black voters. But, that could be not the case, but it's definitely moved in a positive direction for him. I would say, all things considered, Trump has a 99% chance right now of winning re-election because of the Democrats. Weak candidates. Failed probably now at impeachment. Certainly, they've already failed at removing him from office. There's no chance of that anymore. Barring some bombshell new testimony that I don't expect them to get, they've failed. Mitch McConnell now can play havoc with their party. He runs the Senate with an iron fist. He's given over to doing the maneuvering thing. He really loves the rules and ways of the Senate because he can manipulate things. He loves it. He gets to play God in the Senate. And he's going to have a great time. And probably some more Democrats will go off board. What will happen is that the Senate will whitewash testimony, bring forth a bunch of people that are favorable to the Republicans. They will probably try to force the whistleblower forward. They will certainly try to force Hunter Biden to give testimony. They'll drag him over the coals, cast it off as a Biden scandal, while Biden's still campaigning, and they'll have hog-tied the others. Literally, Buttigieg benefits almost solely. He's the only one in the top tier of the field that'll still be campaigning. Biden will be too busy defending himself and his son. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders will be stuck 6 days a week in the Senate chambers. And Kamala Harris, come on, she's already destroyed her own campaign. She can't even get people to retweet her anymore. Buttigieg could end up pulling it out of his ass, pardon the enormous pun there, simply because of Senate procedures. By the way, I think that would backfire. Having Buttigieg as the nominee would actually be a danger to Trump, unlike every fucking other candidate in the top tier of the field. It'd be funny. It'd be funny if that 1 in 100 chance scenario that I've talked about comes true. Buttigieg ends up winning because Mitch McConnell decides to screw around in the Democrats' head, ends up winning the presidency. And so we've got our first gay president. He's 39 years old and believes in Jesus. I think that would be hilarious. It'd be hilarious. And I think, arguably, he's the only one of the Democrats that might kind of do an okay job. You know, he probably wouldn't get tax reform because it looks like what's going to happen is the Dems are going to lose the House anyway. He wouldn't have any mandate to govern. He certainly wouldn't have control of the Senate. So what the fuck's he supposed to do? That's about all. Peace out.